So how do we expose it all? How do we stop a psyop? That's what we're going to end with today. So psyops are the biggest tool of control, as we've seen throughout this entire episode, by our ruling class. They're the biggest open, secret, whatever, by our ruling class to control people. And the reason why they're run so often is that they themselves, meaning our leaders, are so unimpressive from every single form and facet that they need to pull off these kind of grand lies in order to keep them in check and us distracted so we don't call them out on their BS. Because the lies are so, they're flying so fast and so heavy right now that people cannot tell the difference between a lie and the truth anymore, which is why psyops are so successful, because they're run under basically the threat of saying that, hey, I don't know what's true, I don't know what's false. That's the common question, what is truth? That's what, it's funny because that's exactly what Pontius Pilate asked Jesus in John 18. It's so funny. I remember reading this in my small group, and I said this is the most 2024 chapter of scripture I've ever read in my entire life, because Pontius Pilate asked Jesus what is truth. And then there's this angry mob outside yelling about what the truth is, like Jesus is this person, Jesus is whatever. And it's so emblematic of our cultural moment. It's really, really funny. And when Jesus tells Pilate what truth is, like Pilate can't comprehend it. He's like, what? It's like, of course he can't comprehend it. Of course he can't. So, but, however, there is a formula for defeating psyops, which you saw with Bobby Kennedy, which you've seen with some other things. And if we run this playbook, which we should, as value-driven, value-oriented people, we will win. And we will take back the narrative on these ops. So, number one thing that we can do on how to stop a psyop is notice a noticeably absurd thing and call it out as such. That's how this thing starts. Hey, that doesn't make sense. Hey, that's stupid. Hey, that's dumb. That's not right. So if you notice our ruling class or people in positions of power elevating a certain thing or pointing out something that does not make sense at all or is patently absurd or is completely nonsensical, call it out. Call it out. So I heard this, I don't know who said this, but basically the saying was that the wound that causes you to scream the most when it's touched is the wound that's infected. So the louder our institutions, the louder our ruling class, our elites, they scream when you talk about something, the more that you know you're over the target. And the more that you know that they're in the wrong. Because if they were right, you have no reason to scream about it. You have no reason to be hysterical about it. This is like when USAID got unmasked as a CIA front operation that they used to conduct operations with the CIA and overthrow governments and things like that, and they were funding all this wild stuff. That's why the backlash was so loud. It wasn't over people in Africa not having clear drinking water. It was that their black box budget of USAID was totally ripped from them and that caused them to panic. That's why. That's why. So you notice a noticeably absurd thing and call it out as such. That's step one. Number two, don't stop talking about it. When you see the absurd thing, when you note the absurd thing, do not stop talking about the absurd thing. You bring it up over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, no matter what the resistance might be. And it's going to be loud and it's going to be fierce if you keep hammering the point. So if they scream louder and louder and louder, you've got them. You've got them. It will take everything in your power to stop, to say, hey, I don't think this is the right thing to do, whatever, but you can't. And you shouldn't. You can't fail if you don't quit. So keep talking. Keep saying the thing. This is how all psyops fall apart that we've seen. From COVID to the Israel lobby to the, to whatever, etc. So, you cannot fail if you cannot quit. Same is true with this scenario too. And more people will start to pay attention to exactly what you're talking about through the entire process. You cannot fail if you can quit. Keep talking because people will start to pay attention. Because if you talk loud enough, if you talk often enough, people will be like, oh, what's that guy talking about? What's that girl talking about? And they will be able to trace it and see, oh, wow, you're putting your thumb on the scale of this thing. And you'll be able to make that point over and over and over again. And people will start to say, oh, wow, that might be something we should look into. And then they'll scream louder. Our ruling class will. Our elites will. The people running the op will. And so the third thing, this is the one that we need to work on, I think. When the psyop falls apart, we need to punish them, the people who ran the op, so hard for it that they don't do it again. Punishment needs to happen. So when a psyop fails, you must call out, name, shame those who participated in it, so they are completely demoralized and disincentivized to ever try something like it ever again. So Jesse Kelly had a clip from his show a couple weeks ago when the whole Russiagate thing exploded, and he basically said, they're like, oh my gosh, Barack Obama's going to get thrown in jail. And Barack Obama, I guess, is protected under presidential immunity. I would think that would be the case anyway. I really don't know. I'm not that educated on Russiagate. But Jesse Kelly was so funny. He put this, he had a clip on his YouTube, and it got reposted on all of his social medias, called Not Everybody is Protected. I thought it was the funniest thing. Not everyone is protected. You can go get the head of the FBI. You can go get Comey. You can go get John Brennan. You can go get James Clapper. You can go get Andrew McCabe. Get somebody. I want one head on one pike. That's it. Hyperbolically, of course. Not going to behead James Comey. I don't want to behead James Comey. James Comey deserves to live. But I want an example. I want someone so demoralized, disincentivized, thrown in jail, whatever the case might be. And the reason is we need to set a precedent and an example that it's not okay to lie to people. It's not okay to lie, particularly when you're in a position of power and authority over important things. If you're a parent, you know this, by the way. Punishment matters. You shouldn't be vindictive about it. You shouldn't, spank your kid 1,000,000 times or ground him for 7 years. But punishment matters. You can't be vindictive about it. You can't be retributive about it. But justice is a thing. And justice needs to be served. And it must be served to people who run psyops on other people. It must be served. Because if it isn't, then we don't live in a free society. We just don't. And we haven't been, which is why these ops have been continuing to be run. So if you want a free country, a fair country, a just country, punishment must be handed down. Or else people will do whatever they want. And we will continue to get the same thing of what we've gotten, and we'll deserve it because we haven't done anything different.